Well, welcome, Leonie Sandelbaum. I'm very happy to have you here today and that you're willing to have this interview because I think you've had a quite impressive career so far, and you're combining it with two young children, one being very, very young, a month or
Indeed.
4, 5,
3 months.
3 months, okay, even younger. So yeah, I'm very curious to get to know you a little bit better and to learn also from your experiences and key insights that you gained. So thanks for taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited.
Good, good. All right. Maybe Leonie, can you start off with sharing a short summary of your professional journey and then key points that you had there?
Sure. Yeah, so maybe before I start with the professional journey, I just say a couple of words about myself as a person. So I actually grew up in, let's say, near Frankfurt in Germany. So I'm German, born and raised here. And yeah, I went to school close to Frankfurt, and then for my studies, I actually decided to study an international business degree. So I actually also went abroad. I did 2 semesters abroad, one in France, the other in Spain. So that was actually what ignited my interest in different cultures and working internationally. After my first study, I decided that I would join IBM and the consulting branch of it. So I actually worked in consulting for quite a while. And I did really amazing projects, and I learned so much working in consulting. For me, consulting was really like the best entry actually into my professional career, because you learn so many techniques. You get a lot of, you pretty much get like a toolbox of skills and capabilities that you can use in so many different situations. That really helps. After IBM, I decided after a couple of years to join Deloitte Consulting. So I had, let's say, from a project perspective, I had a couple of different projects by its nature, just because Deloitte is more of one of the big four, so you actually work more on regulatory projects. But I actually also were quite lucky. I worked on very strategic and also operations focused projects. I've always consulted banks in the financial services industry, so I've actually never seen any other company or consulted any other company. And that was also by choice. I really was already interested from the start to work in banking. I still remember when I actually graduated from my first study program, I actually had a mentor at the time who said to me, "Are you sure you actually want to work in banking?" Because it was right after the financial crisis. And he was like, "Yeah, I mean, the golden times are over. Maybe you should consider a different industry." And I was like, "No, this is actually really interesting to me." And I couldn't believe that the golden times maybe were over, but that also there are maybe silver times, or also like still good times to be spent in that industry. So I was really motivated to start in banking and in consulting for banks. So that's what I did.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, and while working at Deloitte, I decided that I wanted to invest a bit more in myself. So I actually went for an MBA degree, a full-time MBA degree in the States. So I did it in San Diego, which I believe is the best place on earth. And after having worked for Deloitte for quite a couple of years, I decided that it's time for me to again branch out again. So I actually wanted to get out of consulting and really get more in depth of the content. And I got the chance to join ING. So that's what I did in 2016. I joined ING in corporate strategy, which was again from a consulting exit perspective ideal for me, because you really get this helicopter view of a bank. I was also very lucky because I could implement a lot of like the learnings, the tool sets that I gathered and gained over the years. And that's where I started my career in ING. And after corporate strategy, I decided to move to its wholesale banking operations, where I'm still at right now, and I really like it. So for me, it's also like quite two extremes, right? I started in strategy, very much long-term visionary thinking, And now I'm really like in the details, and I always consider operations as the engine room of ING, of a bank in general. So this is what actually is super interesting to me.
Yeah. And I'm just curious, in your career, what are the key points that made a big impact on you, or the steps that you took, or the chances that you gave?
I think so again, I'm referring to a mentor that I had back in the days, and I had many, but I'm now thinking of this one person who gave me this piece of advice when I graduated from my first study program. He said to me, Leonie, you need to have some kind of like plot, like a thread in your resume or in your career that people from the outside clearly and also easily understand. So whether it's, for instance, a certain theme that you're pursuing, or whether it's, for instance, in my case, I always worked very internationally. So interestingly, nowadays, when I talk to people from the outside who don't know me, the first comment that I usually get is that people say, wow, you've really been in a lot of different places, and you've really worked in a lot of international environments, etc. So I would say that this is definitely a theme. Another theme, just like taking my example again, is indeed that I've been mostly working in banking. So I haven't really branched out that much. This can be, of course, a disadvantage, but for me, it was always an advantage, because people could clearly see, okay, so this is her area of expertise that she's been focusing on. And I'm now referring to another piece of advice that I received a couple of years ago, that it is let's say, in order to make a career, it is not only important for yourself to have kind of like this plot in a theme, but it's even more so important for others who really look, because most of the time people just look at your resume, they just look very high level on the milestones in your career, and if it literally shouts out to them, okay, this is what this person, in this case, for instance, you, Ellen, or myself, Leonie, this is what she or he is standing for, that makes this life so much easier also for people then to imagine what could be a new opportunity, the potential new role for that person.
Yeah. And are you then also saying, Leonie, that you determined that in the beginning of your career, what it should be?
I guess at the beginning of the career, I was, as probably a lot of young graduates are, you are in this position where you just think, oh my goodness, I mean, there are so many opportunities in this world. I could go in so many different directions. What am I going to do? And what am I strong at, right? And it's, I guess, especially nowadays, you really feel like overwhelmed with the world of choices, because there are so many choices. But I guess at the end of the day, for me, my recipe of success was always that you just have to make a choice and you just have to stick to it, because every choice, whether it, for instance, in my case, because I went for banking, I guess it was more by accident that I went for banking. But at the end of the day, it's what you make out of it. And I'm thinking that I'm making the most out of it for myself. And I'm actually having fun with it. So as long as I have fun, then, and I'm passionate for what I'm doing, then I'm also doing a good job. And whenever I feel, or if I ever feel that I'm not having fun or that I'm not passionate about what I'm doing, then I would most likely actually change directions and I would go for something else.
Yeah. Good. And you mentioned that you had quite the mentors. How important was that for you?
Yeah, so this is, I mean, if you'd ask me what is like my number one recommendation for what you just need to have in your professional life, it's to have mentors, and even more so sponsors in your life, because there is a big difference. Mentors are the people that give you advice, that give recommendations, that are, depending on the persons, are also in a position to give you sometimes a reality check. And not only depending on the person, but also depending on the relationship that you have with them. But sponsors are actually the ones who are really lifting you to the next big step, who take the leap of faith, who are also, let's say, a bit more risk attuned to say, you know what, I'm going to give Leonie, or I'm
Take
going
it
to give
out. Yeah.
this new opportunity, even though some other people might say, yeah, but she hasn't done this in the past, she doesn't have the experience, etc. So this is absolutely crucial to have mentors, but even more so sponsors in your life.
How do you find them? There's no shop, I guess. So yeah, how do you get there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I started off having, well, and that was really at the beginning of my career, that IBM was actually great at establishing mentorship relationships, because it was super important to them. So they even had like official programs where you could apply and you would then get assigned a mentor and these kind of things. So I think that was a great starting point. But so nowadays I would even say I don't believe as much anymore into this artificial matching of people. It's more like whenever I actually meet someone where I think I have a click, and I also think it's actually vice versa, the other person has a click with me, and I can see that there's a win-win for both sides, where it's not only me gaining from it, but also the other person, then I think it's just like a natural way of building this relationship where this person just becomes your mentor without that person even maybe not knowing, but at least not acknowledging it at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because it feels always odd when people are reaching out, hey, would you like to be my mentor, without even really knowing that person. I mean, in some cases this could work out, but at least my experience is that the successful mentorship relationships that I had were with people that I already had built a relationship with. And I just reached out proactively very, very often. And I asked and also sought their advice. And I never really labeled it as a mentorship relationship. So there was therefore also never the pressure of, yeah, we need to meet on a, I don't know, monthly basis or so. It was actually much more naturally flowing, and also convenient to both our schedules, etc.
Yeah, makes sense. And is it then that they become your sponsors later on, or?
Well, let's say finding sponsors is actually quite tricky and also not that easy. If I now look back at the people that I've been working with and that I consider my sponsors, I don't actually have that many. And I don't think that this comes as a surprise, because it is super, super difficult to really find a great sponsor in your professional life. But the sponsor that I'm actually now thinking of, he is also indeed a mentor of mine. But it didn't start off as a mentorship, I would say. It actually started off, first of all, as a regular working relationship. And of course, I was a part of his team. And then we started off, really working great as a team. And then it developed to become that he would become my sponsor, because he actually gave me more and more new opportunities. And I just delivered on what. Yeah.
So you gained some trust. Are there also key challenges that you faced, being a woman in a male world, that you had to that you overcome?
Well, I guess I'm pretty much used to the environment that I'm operating in, right? And it is not a surprise that it is a very, very male-dominated environment. So I'm actually used to having, for instance, being in meetings where I'm the only woman at the table. But no question about that. That, of course, also comes with challenges. And as I can still remember back in the days when I was, let's say, a bit more junior at the beginning of my career, this felt really overwhelming. I still remember that I also participated in trainings specifically designed for women who give you lots of different recommendations in terms of what you should or should not do as a woman in order to be seen and to be acknowledged, etc. So I still remember, for instance, this one piece of advice where I was told, men always say something in a meeting, even if it's just repeating another person's opinion or whatever that person has said before. And I always thought, but this is just like, sorry, but this is just ridiculous. Why would I repeat what another person already said? But these kind of pieces of advice, they of course also shape how you then behave, not only in meetings but just in general in the professional context. And I would say that tested a lot of it in my past career, and I did exactly that. So that also in meetings where I just made sure that I said something in order to be seen, in order to be seen as part of the group, as part of, for instance, some bigger decisions. But at the end of the day, I mean, you just have to find your own style, your own way of doing things. And I think that is actually the challenge, that no matter who you are, whether you're male, female, diverse, whatever, it really depends on, you need to feel comfortable. You need to feel also self-confident, and you can only reach that if you find your own style.
Yeah, and that's a journey, I think, in probably different per person into how you get there. Any key points for you that you can share that could work for others, into how you found your own authentic way to be in this in this world?
I guess my tip would really be, look at work or the professional context a bit as a bit of like a playground. I mean, of course, there are certain let's say situations where you just have to perform like to 120%, where you can't just like test yourself by, for instance, behaving a little bit differently or doing something a bit differently to how you would do it as usual. But there are a lot of opportunities in your work life where you can actually just try it out, just test it yourself. And that actually helps you by, for instance, then also gauging the other person's reactions and what the outcome then sometimes is, whether that works for you or whether it doesn't. And I think it really helps if you are a character who reflects also upon yourself. And I think that is actually that's even, I would say, a trait that a lot of women indeed bring to the table, that if speaking of cliches, if you're this reflective person, then just reflect not only your day, your week, your months, how you have behaved in certain situations, how other people reacted to you, and how it actually made you feel, and what you think it made other people feel. And then, just take action and say to yourself, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore, but I'm going to do this habit, or I'm going to do something else. And I think that really helps yourself to find and navigate this very complex environment that we're in, to find your own style.
Beautiful said. I think perfect. It's always a point I make as well. You need to just go ahead and try, but reflect as well, because otherwise you're not going to learn. So thanks for that tip, Leonie. You come across, if I can say so, as very self confident. Well, at least that's how you come across. So maybe my question is that the case? And do you sometimes doubt yourself? Because I think a lot of women struggle with that, that they doubt themselves, and that holds them back to take steps or approach people or speak up in situations.
Yeah, no, I mean, yes, I am self-confident, but that also is the product of a lot of work. I do recognize also the feeling of doubt, of questioning yourself, of not being sure, are you actually the one for this opportunity, this challenge, etc. But I definitely have to say that over the years, I've overcome a lot of that. And what definitely helps is to constantly get yourself, I mean, it sounds so cheesy, but it is really true, to get yourself out of your comfort zone. So I deliberately, for instance, chose over the past years to always, for instance, raise my hand when somebody would ask, hey, would you like to do this presentation or this speaking engagement? Or would you like to take on this new project? And even though my first reaction would have been a couple of years ago, ooh, I don't know whether I'm first capable, whether of doing it, or whether I would have the time, and all these kind of thoughts and concerns you might have, I'm literally just putting them away. And I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. And I think that really helps, because the more experience you then also have, and positive experience in terms of, hey, you actually made it, it just is a natural, it just helps you naturally to build the self-confidence from the start. And so there is no need of having these kind of concerns, because I mean, again, it sounds cheesy, but a lot of those successful people out there, whether they're men or women, etc., they most likely had those concerns and doubts as well, but they've overcome them as well by just exercising, practicing, overcoming them by putting yourself out there, by putting yourself out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, yeah. And that's experimenting as well, what you mentioned before. You just try, you see, does it fit? So it brings you either, yes, it's authentic to me, and then you get confident in your authenticity, or not, and you stop doing them.
Indeed, indeed. And sometimes it also helps to realize, okay, I'm actually not that good in a certain topic or in a certain area. And I think that's also fine to realize that, because then it just helps you again navigate what you actually want to do in your life. Because again, and I sometimes see that or observe that with people, that they just look at their work life and career as, yeah, this is what I've been stuck with. Well, I actually believe this is a constant choice that you have almost on a daily basis. So it's actually up to you to show up for work. It's up to you to do this exact job. And if it really doesn't fit you, or if you think your strengths actually lie somewhere else, well, then again, reach out to your network, reach out to people that could be mentors or that are your mentors, and find out what is it actually that you're good at and that you are really passionate about. Because again, that helps you so much also in your self-confidence when you're passionate, when you're my boss always says, Leonie, when I see that your eyes are kind of like twinkling, that's it then for you. Yeah. And it is exactly like that.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. And you are, at least you're always looking, it appears like you want to learn or develop something new or explore something new. What is that? What's that drive behind it that makes you do these things, that pushes you maybe?
Yeah, I would say this is actually a good word that you used. I'm pushing myself quite a lot, and some people, and especially friends and family that know me really best, they always say that I sometimes might even overdo it, that I might push myself a bit too much. But I think it's just in my character. It's always been that way. I've always been very ambitious, very like target objective oriented. And yeah, I do enjoy this feeling of that I overcame certain challenges. It's almost addictive that when you made it, when you have this feeling of victory, that yes, again, another tick in the box. And some people might think that this is crazy, but for me, I really like this. And indeed, this learning part is also very important. And every time when we do these kind of assessments about ourselves, which you do a lot in the workspace in order to get to know yourself a bit better, learning is very much up on my scale, because I'm always curious. I've always been very curious. I do want to also improve myself. I want to optimize. I want to just do things more efficiently, better. And I think that is also one of the drivers that make me push myself so much.
Yeah, nice, thanks. And maybe I can bridge a little bit to another topic, and that's I mentioned it in the introduction. You have two small children, one very, very small. How you balance it, right? Because that's it's not easy, and it's not easy for anybody. Also for men, it's not easy, but typically it's a bit more difficult for us. So I was just curious, how do you experience that, and how do you manage?
I would say I take every day as it is, and I take it day by day. I think that's the right wording. So I'm for instance a person who likes to plan and prepare a lot and organize. My husband even might say that I'm a bit again overdoing it on the organization part, but that gives me the sense of control. And however, especially when you have kids, and you can probably relate to this, Ellen, kids don't let themselves control so easily. So it's always, you have to be super flexible, and you all constantly have to adjust to new situations, to new tantrums, to new growth spurts and all that kind of stuff, right? And that's what I'm constantly learning since I well, since I had my bigger one, that even if at the end of the day, I plan my next day or my next couple of days, I can do this only to a certain degree. And then there's always like this big, let's say, wiggle room where I just have to just go with it, go with the flow. And I think that definitely, knowing that gives you also this comfort and this peace that sometimes the day just goes totally different as you had it planned out. And yeah, just make the best out of it. So I would say the motto carpe diem is definitely something that I live by. Maybe not to the utmost extreme, so I would probably call it more like a light carpe diem, because I do like to also keep like the midterm, long-term view in sight. But yeah, the carpe diem is definitely helping me, and to have as much quality time with my kids as possible. And I think the home office, the possibility to work from home, definitely helps. No question about it. But I also, of course, also have days where I don't see them as much as I would like to. But at the same time, I at least belong to those people, or to those women, I have to say, I do enjoy working, because this gives me a lot for myself. And I do believe that hence I can actually give even more so to my kids. I would actually not be in this position to give them as much if I wouldn't take care of myself. And I think therefore, this actually, a lot of people or a lot of women always talk about the self-care. For me, work also belongs to my own self-care, next to, well, doing yoga or any kind of workout and reading and all that kind of stuff. But for me, that's my self-care, to take care of myself, of my professional development, etc.
Yeah.
And yeah, no question about it. It is a challenge to struggle it all, and especially when there's so little that they're so dependent upon you.
Yeah. I also recognize what you mentioned with the pregnancy leave after 3 months. I mean, it's lovely. It's lovely. It's maybe a bit soon for some people. Then again, for me, it really felt like, yes, I can do something else than the diapers as well. Yeah. And Leonie, the flexibility that you mentioned, carpe diem, or whatever happens during your day. Sometimes one of the children is sick or something happens, and then you need to shift your agenda, or you can't make anything. Is that how does that feel to you? Do you feel guilty, or are you at ease with that?
I would lie if I would now say I don't feel guilty about it. No, definitely. There is always this constant guilt nagging at the back of your mind. But it also helps to just like be true to yourself, and also to be frank with yourself by saying, you know what, you're doing your best for everyone and everything. I'm doing my best regarding my employer, my work, but I'm also doing my best for my family. And I think actually there was this one person in my past life that always used to say, it's also in, for instance, in relationship, it's never actually 50-50, where your partner and you're constantly doing 50% of all the work, for instance, in the household or in the relationship, etc. There will be days where it's like 80-20, where you really have to do the 80% of the work, or of all of the stuff that is happening, or sometimes it might be even 20%. And this is something, if you kind of embrace this concept also with the fact that if, for instance, one of the kids is sick, then maybe I do a little bit less on the work side, but there will be also days where I will definitely do even more than I would usually do even without kids. So I think at the end of the day, as long as it's balancing it out, and as long as on the bottom line, you can look into the mirror and you can tell yourself, you know what, I'm actually doing a good job on both angles, I think then everything is fine. And at the end of the day, I also believe employers and also colleagues, I mean, it's sometimes difficult for those who don't have kids themselves, but at the end of the day, I mean, kids are really our future, right? So I do think that everyone actually in our society does have a certain responsibility also to support parents. That's my personal opinion. So it is important to also understand that there is a period of everyone's parents' life where they might actually maybe take one or even sometimes two steps a bit back. just to be there for their family, for their kids. However, there will be also times where they, for instance, will be in the position to support you or to support someone else, because I think it's a give and take. And again, as long as there is a balance, I think we're good. But no question about it, the guilt is always there.
Yeah, and the balance that you mentioned, and I think that's personal, right? It's for everybody has their own balance. Your balance is maybe completely different than mine, or the other way around. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and do you sometimes feel a pressure from the outside around the choices you make in your own balance?
Definitely. I mean, we live in a society where we're constantly judged. So I also can, for instance, recognize a lot of women out there saying, and you read it, whether it's on Instagram, on social media, or on other means, where women say, well, I can't do it right for anyone. For instance, you're not doing a great job at being a mother when you also work full time, or you're not doing a great job as an employee while having a family. So there's this constant dilemma that you're in, that you, and again, to your point, you have to solve it for yourself. As long as you actually find a way where you feel comfortable, I think that is actually the key to it. So, but yeah, no question about it that there is pressure from the outside. But it really helps to, again, focus on what is really important to you, your core, your family, but also, again, to the self-care. What are the key points that you would consider being essential for your self-care, and do that, because that just gives you the energy that you need in order to give back to others. And also, like, all those comments and judgmental opinions out there, those are opinions. And the good thing is that, especially in the world that we're living with social media, it also has taught us that there's a lot behind the surface, right? So even if people, for instance, give you the pressure, sometimes you just need to poke a bit, or just need to think, okay, maybe that person is also going through some tough times. And you never know. That's what I'm trying to say here. So at the end of the day, yes, there is this pressure. Yes, there are people who might actually not think so positively about your life's choices and these kind of things. But as long as they're your life choices, that's actually the most important.
Yeah, and they're also, in a lot of cases, assumptions, aren't they, from what we think that others think. Well, in fact, it might not be the case.
Exactly. Because I see the surface. I mean, I don't really know what is really going on, for instance, in your life, nor do you know what is really going on in my life. Of course, I can try to be as authentic as possible. But at the end of the day, unless you're really like a close family member or a very close friend, and even they might not actually see everything. It's all about what you said, all about assumptions.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Leonie. And maybe going a bit to the closure of the podcast, because you already shared a lot. A few questions that I wanted to ask you. Is there anything you think we should do within our organization, or in the communities that we live in, that could help to close the gap male-female within organization, and especially in leadership positions?
Yeah, I truly believe in, and I think this is actually in line with what I've been talking over the past hour with you. Not only finding yourself a sponsor, but also being a sponsor for others. So I strongly believe in this sisterhood. Let's not kid ourselves. I also sometimes have thoughts in terms of, hey, is this other woman, for instance, really fit for the job, etc. And then I'm like, you know what? I don't want to fall into the same trap as a lot of my predecessors actually went. I'm going to do this differently. So I try to really support other women as much as possible, whether they're a bit more junior, or even on my level, or even more senior, because I do believe that I could also provide them with some feedback, or maybe some guidance, just from my own personal perspective. But it's really like supporting each other more, and also sometimes giving others a bit of the nudge. Like when you hear, for instance, another woman voicing voicing her concerns about a new opportunity, just giving her the nudge, hey, you should go for it. And just telling her, you know what, and I will be around. So if you need someone to just talk it through, even if it's really on content level, in the sense like how you're going to do the first 90 days, etc. I think that is really where we can push each other more, and where we can help each other to close that gap. And towards the male community, I would say, I would really love to have more ambassadors out there who also help fight the cause, in the sense that everyone becomes aware of their unconscious biases and wants to overcome them. So if I see more male ambassadors out there saying, you know what, I'm going to give this job to this woman, for instance, who might be a bit still on the junior side, but I strongly believe in her potential, in her skills and capabilities, and I will also make sure whatever I can to support her, please do so.
Beautiful. Yeah. It feels like a perfect ending. I still have a few questions, but it feels like a beautiful ending. I think you summarized it perfectly, Leonie. It's a good tip in both directions, and also very nice to hear that you're sponsoring yourself, because that's something that we sometimes forget. I think, to do the same, to treat others like you want to be treated yourself, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, be kind to each other, and I think it always comes back. I strongly believe in the concept of reciprocity.
Yeah. Any final words or thoughts from your end, Leonie, that we didn't touch upon and you would like to share?
Well, I mean, I don't want to dilute our perfect ending of the conversation, but I want to maybe mention one more thing, and that is, we spend so much time with our colleagues and at work, even sometimes more than with our families. So let's actually make it as pleasant as possible. Don't be so hard on each other. I mean, we all should have at least the same goals, in the sense that we want to progress, for instance, our companies or the cause that we're working for. And why not actually do this while having fun and enjoying being together and doing this as a team?
Thanks a lot, Leonie.
Thank you.
Found this interesting and want more of these insights? Make sure to follow Ellemonte on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, or LinkedIn.